The Women Who Breathed with the Sea. Part 1. One breath between life and death. Before dawn breaks over South Korea's Jeju Island, the shoreline is almost silent. The fishing boats have not yet returned, and the only sounds are gentle waves against black volcanic rocks and distant seabirds drifting through the morning sky. An elderly woman walks toward the water, carrying a bright orange float called a tiwak. Attached beneath it hangs a mangsari, a net that will hold the day's catch. At her waist rests a metal tool known as a bichang, used to loosen abalone from volcanic rock before her precious breath runs out. Someone asks why she still dives. She smiles without taking her eyes off the horizon.
When I stay away too long, I miss it,
she says softly. Moments later, she inhales deeply and slips beneath the waves. Nearly 2 minutes pass before she rises again. As she exhales, a long, clear whistle drifts across the water. The sound is called sumbisori. To visitors, it is beautiful. To another Haenyeo floating nearby, it means something simpler. Another diver has returned safely. For centuries, that whistle has echoed around Jeju Island, becoming the unmistakable voice of one of the world's most extraordinary communities of women. Daughters of the Sea. The women are known as Haenyeo, literally sea women. For generations, they have harvested abalone, sea urchins, octopus, shellfish, and seaweed without scuba tanks or breathing equipment. Experienced divers may descend 15 to 20 meters beneath the surface, remaining underwater for 1 to 3 minutes before rising again. Their tradition stretches back more than 1,000 years. Historical records from the Goryeo dynasty mention divers around Jeju, including men. By the 18th century, however, women had become the island's principal divers. As wars, military service, dangerous fishing, and taxation reduced the number of male divers, women gradually assumed responsibility for harvesting the sea and became the economic backbone of many households. That shift transformed Jeju society. Across much of Korea, men traditionally served as primary wage earners. On Jeju, many families depended largely on the income earned by women beneath the waves. Their catches paid for food, clothing, and children's education. Visitors often remarked that Jeju women enjoyed unusual independence, not because they sought authority, but because necessity placed it in their hands. Long before anyone spoke of women's empowerment, the Haenyeo were quietly living it. Learning the language of the water. No one becomes a Haenyeo overnight. The ocean itself serves as the classroom. For generations, girls learned by following their mothers and grandmothers into shallow water. They first mastered floating, then swimming, then holding their breath. Only after years of practice were they allowed to dive deeper. One lesson was repeated again and again.
Don't fight the water. If you struggle, it wins. If you move with it, it carries you.
Those words captured the philosophy of the Haenyeo. The goal was never to conquer nature. It was to understand it. As the girls matured, they learned to read tides, recognize dangerous currents, judge weather by the sky, and harvest only what nature could replenish. These lessons passed quietly from one generation to the next, through observation, patience, and experience. Ironically, the sacrifices of these women eventually allowed many daughters to choose different lives. Income earned beneath the waves paid for education, opening doors to careers far from the sea. In many families, the success of one generation made it possible for the next to leave the profession behind. One breath between life and death. Watching a Haenyeo dive from shore appears graceful. Underwater, it is a race against time. A diver glides silently above volcanic rock, searching for abalone hidden beneath forests of kelp. Every movement is efficient because every second consumes precious oxygen. When her lungs finally demand air, she rises steadily toward the surface. Breaking through the water, she releases the familiar whistle of sumbisori, quickly exchanging stale air for fresh before the next descent. Modern science has only recently begun to understand what these women have accomplished for centuries. Researchers have documented slower heart rates during dives, remarkable tolerance to cold water, and highly efficient breath control. developed through decades of practice. The Haenyeo simply call it experience. A community built on skill. Not every Haenyeo dives the same waters. The community follows a respected hierarchy based on skill and experience. Beginners known as Haegun work shallow waters. Jungun divers venture deeper into stronger currents. At the highest level stand the Sangun, elite divers trusted to work the most demanding fishing grounds and guide others. When conditions become dangerous, the system is not about prestige. It is about safety. Traditionally, villages also organized fishing grounds according to experience and age. Beginners learned in sheltered waters, while elderly divers often worked calmer areas closer to shore. The arrangement protected both people and the marine environment, while reinforcing the belief that every generation had its place. More than divers. The Haenyeo are admired for their endurance, yet their greatest achievement may not be physical at all. It is the community they built. After hours in cold water, the women gathered around a stone shelter called the bultiok, warming themselves beside an open fire while discussing weather, exchanging news, singing traditional songs, and teaching younger divers what experience could never be learned from books. Their relationship with nature reflected the same wisdom. Long before conservation became a global concern, they harvested selectively, respected seasonal restrictions, and left immature shellfish untouched, so future generations could continue living from the same waters. To the Haenyeo, nature was never something to conquer. It was something to care for.
Part 2. The sea remembers. The sea has a spirit. To understand the Haenyeo, it is not enough to know how they dive. One must understand how they view the sea. For generations, many believed the ocean possessed a spirit of its own. Each spring, villages across Jeju held the Yeongdungus, a traditional shamanic ceremony honoring Yeongdung, the goddess of the wind and sea. Families prepared offerings while shamans prayed for calm weather, plentiful harvests, and the safe return of every diver. Their prayers are revealing. The women did not ask for wealth. They asked to return home. This belief shaped every aspect of their work. Young shellfish were left untouched. Harvesting seasons were respected. Fishing grounds were allowed time to recover before divers returned. Today we call this sustainability. The Haenyeo simply called it respect. Their philosophy reminds us that people do not own nature. They belong to it. When the sea became a battlefield. The ocean was not the only force the Haenyeo faced. During Japan's colonial rule over Korea, many Haenyeo were forced to sell their catch at unfair prices through Japanese-backed fishing associations, while others profited from their dangerous labor. The divers had spent their lives facing storms. They refused to surrender to injustice. Between 1931 and 1932, thousands of Haenyeo joined hundreds of demonstrations demanding fair prices, economic justice, and freedom from colonial exploitation. Leaders such as Bu Chun-hwa, Jim Og Lyon, and Bu Deog Liang became symbols of courage despite facing arrest and imprisonment. Although the protests were eventually suppressed, they became an important chapter in Korea's independence movement. The women carried no weapons, only the determination they had learned from years of surviving one dive after another. We weren't brave, we were hungry. People often describe the Haenyeo as fearless. Many of the women tell a different story. Before modern wetsuits appeared, they entered icy winter water wearing only thin cotton diving clothes. After an hour of work, they climbed ashore to warm themselves briefly beside the bultiok, before returning to the sea again. Someone once praised an elderly Haenyeo for her courage. She smiled gently and said,
People think we were brave, we weren't brave, we were hungry.
Those few words explain the Haenyeo better than almost any historical record. They did not seek danger for adventure. They accepted it because their families depended on them. Their catches bought rice, clothing, medicine, and schoolbooks. The education of countless children was paid for one dive at a time. Perhaps the greatest success of the Haenyeo is that many of their daughters never had to become Haenyeo themselves. A sea that is changing. Ironically, the greatest threat facing the Haenyeo today is no longer the danger of diving. It is the changing ocean itself. Most active Haenyeo are now over 60 years old. and many continue diving into their 70s and even 80s. Few younger women choose this demanding life, and each year the community grows smaller. At the same time, climate change is reshaping the waters around Jeju. Marine scientists have documented the spread of Baekwayeonsong, often called the whitening of the sea, as underwater forests of kelp and seaweed disappear. Abalone and sea urchins lose both food and shelter. Productive fishing grounds gradually become barren stretches of underwater rock. Many veteran Haenyeo say the sea no longer resembles the one they knew as children. The greatest loss is not simply fewer shellfish. It is the disappearance of an entire underwater world. A living heritage. Yet the story of the Haenyeo is not simply one of decline. It is also one of recognition. In 2016, UNESCO inscribed the culture of Jeju Haenyeo on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The honor recognizes far more than free diving. It celebrates a culture built upon ecological knowledge, community cooperation, oral tradition, spiritual beliefs, and respect for nature. Today, Jeju has established Haenyeo schools, where younger generations can learn the ancient skills, while museums preserve tools, photographs, songs, and memories. So the culture will not disappear even as the number of divers declines. The Haenyeo have also become a symbol of women's resilience around the world. Their story is no longer only Korea's. It belongs to the world. The greatest inheritance. The true legacy of the Haenyeo cannot be measured by the number of abalone they gathered, or the depth of their dives. It lives in the values they pass to the next generation. One village tells of a mother who had long been considered its finest diver. For years her daughter struggled to equal her skill. Then one autumn morning, the daughter finally returned with the larger catch. Instead of disappointment, the older woman smiled proudly and said,
"Today I won. A teacher's greatest day is the day her student becomes better than she is."
That quiet exchange captures the heart of Haenyeo culture. Its purpose has never been simply to produce skilled divers. It has always been to prepare the next generation for life. The last whistle. Tomorrow, before sunrise, an elderly woman will once again walk across Jeju's black volcanic shore carrying her to walk. She will pause at the water's edge, take one deep breath, and disappear beneath the waves. For a few moments, the ocean will keep its ancient secret. Then she will rise again, and the clear whistle of Sumbizali will drift across the morning sea. There are fewer voices today than there once were. Yet each whistle carries far more than a single breath. It carries 1,000 years of history. It carries mothers who risked their lives, so their children could dream beyond the horizon. It carries communities that chose cooperation over competition, and stewardship over exploitation. Most of all, it carries a lesson our modern world still needs. The Haenyeo never believed that human beings stood above nature. They believed we live within it. Perhaps that is why these remarkable women continue to inspire people far beyond the shores of Jeju. And perhaps, as long as even one Haenyeo steps quietly into the sea before dawn, takes one deep breath, and lets her Sumbisori rise into the morning air, the story of the women who breathe with the sea will never truly end.
Terminology Guide. Haenyeo. Definition: traditional women divers from Jeju Island, South Korea, who collect seafood by freediving without scuba equipment. Boltok. Definition: a traditional stone shelter, where Haenyeo rest, warm themselves by a fire, and share stories and knowledge after diving. Mangsari. Definition: a net attached to a diver's float that is used to carry the seafood collected underwater. Bichang. Definition: a flat metal tool used by Haenyeo to loosen abalone and shellfish from rocks. Kakuri. Definition: a hooked metal tool used to search rocky holes for sea urchins, octopuses, and other sea animals. Sumbisori. Definition: the whistling sound Haenyeo make when they come to the surface to breathe after a dive. Yungdonggu. Definition: a traditional shamanic ceremony held on Jeju Island to pray for safe diving, good weather, and a successful harvest from the sea. Yeongdeung. Definition: in Jeju tradition, the goddess of the wind and sea, who is believed to protect divers and bring good harvests. 백화현상. Definition: a condition in which the seafloor turns white because of the spread of calcified algae, damaging seaweed forests and reducing marine life. 대왕. Definition: a floating buoy used by Haenyeo as a life preserver and to support the net that carries their catch. Goryeo Dynasty. Definition: a Korean kingdom that ruled from 918 to 1392 and gave Korea the name Korea. Early records of Jeju divers date from this period. Agibadang. Definition: baby sea, a safe, shallow diving area where beginner Haenyeo learn their skills. Halmangbadang. Definition: grandmother sea, a calmer diving area where older Haenyeo can continue working more safely.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Abalone. Definition: a large shellfish that lives on rocks in the sea and is eaten as food. Example: the diver found an abalone attached to a rock under the water. 2. Sea urchins. Definition: small round sea animals with many sharp spines that live on the ocean floor. Example: the Haenyeo collected sea urchins from the rocks. 3. Empowerment. Definition: the process of giving people more confidence, freedom, and the ability to make their own decisions. Example: education gave many women a feeling of empowerment. 4. Replenish. Definition: to fill something again after some of it has been used. Example: the Haenyeo left young shellfish so the sea could replenish itself. 5. Stale. Definition: no longer fresh or clean. Example: the diver breathed out stale air before taking a fresh breath. 6. Hierarchy. Definition: a system in which people have different levels of rank or responsibility. Example: the Haenyeo follow a hierarchy based on skill and experience. 7. Prestige. Definition: the respect and admiration that people receive because of their success or position. Example: she did not dive for prestige but to support her family. 8. Reinforcing. Definition: making something stronger or helping people believe it more. Example: the tradition of older women teaching younger divers was reinforcing the community's values. 9. Sustainability. Definition: using natural resources carefully so they will still be available in the future. Example: the Haenyeo practiced sustainability by taking only what the sea could replace. 10. Exploited. Definition: treated unfairly so that someone else can gain money or benefit. Example: during colonial rule, many Haenyeo were exploited by unfair fishing associations. 11. Exploitation. Definition: the unfair use of people or resources to gain money or advantage. Example: the women protested against the exploitation of their hard work. 12. Resilience. Definition: the ability to stay strong and recover after facing difficulties. Example: the Haenyeo are admired for their resilience in difficult times.
Comprehension questions. 1. What is a Haenyeo? Answer: a Haenyeo is a traditional woman diver from Jeju Island, South Korea, who collects seafood by freediving without scuba equipment. 2. What does the word sumbisori mean? Answer: sumbisori is the whistling sound a Haenyeo makes when she comes to the surface and breathes after a dive. 3. Why did women become the main divers on Jeju Island? Answer: over time, wars, military service, dangerous fishing, and heavy taxation reduced the number of male divers, so women gradually became the main providers by harvesting the sea. 4. What important lesson did mothers teach their daughters about the sea? Answer: they taught their daughters not to fight the water, but to move with it and respect nature. 5. Why is freediving so dangerous? Answer: because the divers have only one breath and must gather seafood before they run out of air. 6. What are the 3 ranks of Haenyeo? Answer: the 3 ranks are Hagen beginners, Jungun middle-level divers, and Sangun the most experienced divers. 7. Why did the Haenyeo use a ranking system? Answer: the ranking system helped protect the divers By making sure they worked only in waters that matched their skills and experience. 8. What was the purpose of the bulldog? Answer. The bulldog was a stone shelter where the Haenyeo rested, warmed themselves, shared news, and taught younger divers. 9. How did the Haenyeo help protect the ocean? Answer. They harvested only what they needed, left young shellfish untouched, and allowed fishing grounds time to recover. 10. What was the Yeongdungut ceremony? Answer. It was a traditional ceremony in which people prayed for calm seas, good harvests, and the safe return of the divers. 11. Why did the Haenyeo protest during the Japanese colonial period? Answer. They protested because they were forced to sell their catch at unfair prices and were treated unjustly. 12. What did the elderly diver mean when she said, "We weren't brave. We were hungry"? Answer. She meant that the women dived because they needed to support their families, not because they wanted to be heroes. 13. What is 백화현상 and why is it a problem? Answer. 백화현상 is the whitening of the seafloor, caused by the spread of calcified algae. It destroys seaweed forests and reduces the food and habitat of marine life. 14. Why did UNESCO recognize the culture of the Haenyeo? Answer. UNESCO recognized the Haenyeo because they preserve traditional knowledge, community values, sustainable fishing practices, and an important cultural heritage. 15. What is the main message of this story? Answer. The story teaches that true strength comes from courage, cooperation, respect for nature, and passing wisdom from one generation to the next. Discussion question, optional. 16. If you had the chance to meet a Haenyeo, what question would you ask her and why? Sample answer. I would ask her what she thinks about when she is underwater, because I want to understand how she stays calm in such a dangerous environment.